Hi, everyone. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee here. Meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, ssstormchasers.com, and SS Storm Chasers will be on the chase with the hurricane during Friday. We are looking at the latest radar, and you can see the eye is just sitting a handful of miles offshore with the southern edge of the Eyewall east-northeast of West Palm Beach, and the western edge of the Eyewall beginning to lash coastal areas in and around Fort Pierce. The eye itself is showing that the hurricane is still moving northwestward, so on this track, it would probably touch land very close between Melbourne and Daytona Beach during the morning hours before daybreak. So it's just moving right along, has really shown no signs of moving off this northwest course. So we're just going to keep just monitoring the radars from here on in to see how everything plays. Let's take a look at what's going on with some real-time observations on the coastline. We have down near, I'll go a little further south. Well, here's West Palm Beach. Now, I want you to notice the winds here are all westerly. So that's telling us that the Eyewall center is somewhere up here, and they're northwesterly as you head up toward Port Salerno and Jensen Beach. There have been the wind gusts around the West Palm Beach area running 30 to 40 miles an hour, and then we have a gust of 42 at Jupiter, a Hob Sound, a gust of 30, and you can see there's a gust of 51 miles an hour reported just north of Port Salerno, a gust of 47 miles an hour at Point St. Lucie. Winds here also northwest. So with the northwest winds at this part of the Florida coast, it's telling us that the eye is going to probably come ashore a little further north than that. So we head up to Vero Beach and see the winds start to turn northerly here. Vero Beach gusting to 51 miles an hour, and then we go further north up toward Cape Canaveral. The winds turn more northeasterly. We have an offshore wind gust here of 51 miles an hour being reported with waves of 14 feet. Cape Canaveral gusting to 47. So, you know, every bit of 40 to 50 in gusts already occurring along the Florida beaches. Of course, the winds inland much lower. And we're going to watch to see how these winds turn. They're more turning more northeasterly as you go further north and even easterly. So, you know, this probably would be where I would think the center would come very close. And we're going to watch Daytona Beach, Melbourne to Daytona Beach. That's probably where we're going to see this come on shore. Now, here's the latest satellite loop. I'll refresh it in case there's a new frame, and there isn't. But it crossed Grand Bahama Island. Freeport had winds over 120 miles an hour. There's that eye right there, still pretty well defined. Now, with the center starting to interact a bit with the land, we're going to see some fluctuations in intensity. So it may weaken a little bit. The eye wall is going to be replacing itself. If I go back to the radar, you can see what happens here. The inner eye kind of deteriorates, which is normal, and then it waits for a new eye to form. You can see it's kind of concentric. There's one band that runs on the outside and one on the inside. The inside band eventually weakens, and then the outside band tightens up and forms the new eye. So this is just part of what's called the eye wall replacement cycle. It's very typical in very strong hurricanes. So when that happens, you get fluctuations in intensity where it weakens a bit, and then once the new eye wall forms, it strengthens a bit. So everything seems to be going according to plan. Here's the view with Hurricane Nicole out to the east by about 600 miles. Amazing. You've got these two hurricanes with this major hurricane off the Florida coast, and let's call it, quote unquote, the minor hurricane further to the east. And it's going to have some, it's going to interact with this in some fashion. Now we'll show you, here's that trough that's approaching the Great Lakes. Now the hurricane models have been mostly showing that loop. A couple of them are still trying to show it moving east-northeast, and you can see that the water vapor imagery has got moisture now pushing up into northern parts of North Carolina. So we're going to have to watch this to see what the final track is. If this trough is just a little bit stronger, it will pull Matthew just a little bit further north. So that's going to increase the risks for the shorelines in the northern shoreline of South Carolina and then into coastal North Carolina. Now, when we look at the GFS model tonight, it actually does do that. It pulls it a little further to the north. So this track, it actually just kind of bounces it right off the Florida coast. It never quite brings it on land on this particular run, and then keeps it just offshore of the Georgia coast, and then brings it very close to the South Carolina coast. And at this point, it's back just south of Wilmington, North Carolina, with heavy rains spreading up through northeastern North Carolina, through all of the Outer Banks, and even into southern Virginia on the northern edge of some of the heavier rains that are going to be coming in with the spiraling bands. Now, I want to just point out that we had this happen last night with the GFS, where it kind of bumped up a little bit further to the north and then only to go back to its original solution in the south. I don't know whether it's something with the night run that it seems to be showing this trough in the northeast a little stronger. Now, as a result, it makes a broader loop, but it still wants to take it southwestward back into the Bahamas, although it doesn't quite take it down into Florida. So it's making that broader loop, instead of making it tight and bringing it back over southern Florida, because it takes it further north, it makes it a much broader looping action. So at this point, by the way, we're at the end of next week. So I would hate to think that this thing is still around at the end of next week, but it's still there, sitting in the Bahamas, at least according to this particular model. I'm going to switch to the upper air so we can take a look at what's going on from that respect, and we'll put it up here. And I'm going to switch over to the jet stream with the upper air, and you'll see it here. And I'm just going to back it up because we're at the end of next week now. That's why that's not the jet stream now, but this is the jet stream at the moment. And you can see that upper trough here is right there. And here's Matthew. There's Nicole. And, you know, Matthew's trying to do something like this, and the trough is moving east. So you have northwest and west winds on this side of the trough. You have southwest winds on this side of the trough. So as we move it along, so this is for tomorrow night, you know, that trough is, it flattens out. It tries to kind of capture it here. You can sort of see it there, right there. And here's Matthew, and there's Nicole. So where we go from here is that the trough, it just misses it. It just misses catching it and kicking it out to the east. And then the trough, by the time we get to Monday, is already, you know, way out here. And Matthew is doing its thing by starting to do that loop, again, of the broader loop because of the trough being shown further to the north. And, you know, you've got west-northwest winds across much of the northeast and into the mid-Atlantic states. And by the way, we have another trough that's coming in, out in the west, so we'll see what that does. Ultimately, you know, Matthew's probably either going to get left behind. Nicole gets kicked out by this approaching trough, this deeper trough later next week, and then beyond that, everything hopefully by then is all gone, because I'd hate to think we're still talking about this a week from today. You know, to have a major hurricane just takes quite a bit out of you. So let's go back to the radar and see what's going on. Let me just get that. There we go. And I'll just refresh it so we can get one last radar image here. And let me just, I'm going to stop it at that point. Okay, so you can kind of see, here's the outer eye and then what's left of the inner eye. So you get this eyewall replacement cycle that occurs. So when this eye degenerates, the new eye forms and tightens up, and that's what we're seeing now. And you know, it looks like it's going to do something like this, where it tracks up to the northwest. You know what? While we got it here, let's go back to the models, and we'll pull up the HRRR model. That's the ultimate short-term model. It only goes out to about 18 hours. And we'll pull up the southeast view so you can see here what it has. Now, the new one, this model run actually comes out every hour. And I have this feeling sometimes that with all these models around, they sort of make forecasting even more difficult. But the HRRR actually brings it onshore and then takes it right up the coast. Now, if this were to happen and it rides just along the coast, part of the eye is going to stay out in the water, part of it's going to be inland. That's going to make any weakening very, very slow. So you're going to spread hurricane conditions all the way up the coast with half the eye on land and half off. And with a system like this, with a Category 4 hurricane only slowly weakening, you're going to have 80, 90, 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts probably all the way up the Florida coast and even into southern Georgia. So it's very important that we figure out ultimately, is the eye going to come partially inland or maybe even completely inland, or is it just going to straddle offshore? If it straddles just offshore, it's liable to maintain most of its intensity, perhaps weakening ever so slowly as it goes up. Either way, the coast is going to be lashed with hurricane force winds as Matthew moves up the Florida East Coast. So we'll keep you updated on all of this. Hurricane Matthew, top winds 130 miles an hour, Category 4 hurricane. Don't forget, SS Storm Chasers will be on the chase on Friday and into the weekend. Meteorologist joechaffee.com for all the latest weather information, and for your local weather information, you have weatherlongisland.com and nycweathernow.com.